if you were to start a practice from scratch, how would you set up the front desk operations?
No front desk space. So you walked right into this area with some chairs and a TV. There's no need for a big front desk.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to the show. We got a special guest today. We got Julie Durham. She is the CEO of Ginger Desk, right? And Julie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick. It's great to be here.
Yeah. And we've known each other for many years, and I think we met when you're still a practice owner. Is that right, Julie?
That's right. Yeah, we probably met pre-Ginger Desk.
Okay.
In your Facebook group, actually.
Okay.
I've been following your stuff for quite some time.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's cool that we get to work with each other now, right?
That's
and
right.
so you've been a practice owner for how many years now, Julie?
20 years.
Okay. Gee, so you understand how the business works, right? As being a practice owner, right?
I do. I've had 2 clinics now.
Okay.
And I've been in practice for 20 years now. So
Okay.
I get it. I get it from the associate side, from the solo practitioner side, and from the clinic.
Amazing.
Clinic boss side, as you call it.
Yeah. And how big is your team?
My team at the clinic is 12.
12? And that includes what? Naturopaths? Like what other disciplines do you have?
We're primarily naturopathic physicians,
Okay.
and we have an acupuncturist as well. So
Okay.
we've got nine naturopathic physicians, an acupuncturist, and then some admin staff as well.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Right. And so, and then do you remember how many years it took you to hit your first million with running the
my
practice?
Gosh. Sure. I mean,
You're like the first 12 months.
This is a great first question, Rick. I sure do. I mean, as a solo practitioner, I thought it would come a lot quicker. And then I branched out and opened my own clinic with a practice partner. And we probably hit our first million in that first year.
Okay. Incredible.
That's top line revenue, right? We're
Yeah.
talking. And
Yes.
It took me a lot longer to figure out how to solve for the bottom line.
Okay. Yeah, totally. And then what's your origin story of creating Ginger Desk? What made you decide to create the business? You got a successful practice, team of 12. What inspired you to create Ginger Desk?
Well, so I launched Ginger Desk in 2020 when a lot of practice owners were operating out of their basement suites, their garages. They had moved out of their brick and mortar practice. And I absolutely adored my brick and mortar practice, adored my clinic. My team was actually running really, really well throughout COVID, throughout 2020. And I had a lot of colleagues ask me what I was doing and how I was making it work, and how I was able to support these folks that had gone virtual, and how we were able to create workflows virtually that could support practitioners working from home.
Yeah,
And
because
so
that was
I thought-
COVID during that time, right? So it was the necessity where you had to pivot to everything was telehealth. Everything was about creating a virtual practice, you can't open a business anymore. And so that was the genesis of Ginger Desk, right?
That's exactly. So
Okay.
that was us. I mean, I looked at how did we get my docs remotely working? We couldn't do IVs, we couldn't do acupuncture, we couldn't do any of our physical medicine. But what we could do was offer virtual consults. And so I worked my butt off with my office staff to create workflows that really supported them. And I realized that our workflows actually pre-COVID were what made us successful. So I thought, what if I could launch these processes, offer them to other practitioners outside of our clinic, and utilize the same systems that I've employed for now 20 years. And so we did it. We launched a little pilot project right here in Vancouver, BC. And I did one webinar in the fall of 2020, invited my colleagues to join me. And very quickly, we brought on our first bunch of clients, tested out every process we worked with them, and we very quickly had some very happy clients, and then we had a big wait list all across Canada.
Yeah.
So within 6 months, we were also all across the US. So
Yeah. And just so we're clear, this is how to run a remote practice without a front desk. So this is into the virtual assistant, remote staff worker industry. Is that right, Julie?
That's right. Exactly. Okay. So what I saw was that my colleagues didn't have a lot of support for them in the clinics they were working from. And worse, I noticed that the admin staff they did have were turning over really regularly. So I saw the gap and we filled it really quickly. And I didn't realize quite how big the gap was, to be honest, in the fall of 2020. It wasn't until the spring that I realized, oh my goodness, like this is a need all across the US, where even if folks are in their clinics, whether they're remote or in clinic, they still have this admin need of needing consistent front desk staff that is already trained, knows how to work in the clinic, and doesn't leave. And that's the big one, is that we now solve the hiring crisis in healthcare. So we've always got someone on a practice, no matter what happens here behind the scenes at Ginger Desk. They've always got someone on their admin team.
So at your practice right now, do they serve as a backup or is it a replacement? Like what's the strategy that you're employing right now at your practice right now?
We've got both. So at my clinic, we've got the backup operating, where we've got folks at the front desk who can do certain things. We also have Ginger Desk available to do other things at the front desk. Now, we serve two different demographics. One is we serve solo practice owners, where we can do everything the front desk does for them. We can handle all their emails, all their phone calls, organize all their billing and payments. Now, for clinic owners, we can do a select few different tasks. It depends where the gaps are. So they might have their front desk staff that is on fire with phones. So for them, we might just handle payments, for example.
Payments and billing and all that stuff that most people like, I don't want to do, right?
That we don't want to do. Exactly. Now, in Canada, we'll do direct insurance billing. In the US, we will offer, we'll do cash-based invoicing for them. We'll handle their accounts receivable. And it really just depends. It depends where there's a gap at the front desk. So if for a clinic owner, there might be a gap a certain few days a week, or it might be that certain tasks are just falling through the cracks. So we'll do an assessment in a discovery call, figure out where they need help most, and we'll look at where their front desk thrives. Because if they've got a great team member that's doing really well with crafting beautiful emails and greeting people at the front desk, we probably don't want to keep their head down doing payments. So it might be that we suggest that we do billing for them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like post-COVID and also with how expensive it is to run a business now, like there's a change with like the traditional role of a front desk. Like, what's your thoughts about this, Julie? Because you work with a lot of practices, and so I'm just curious, like, what are you seeing like right now with what's trending with the role of a front desk?
Well, so we call it the progressive front desk here at Ginger Desk, and I believe in a teams-based approach. So it's that we want to believe that there's a unicorn out there who can solve all our problems, come in and just handle everything while we see patients. But the reality is, working with humans comes with a certain level. You're laughing.
Like turnover, you mean?
Turnover, and just a certain level of risk where there might be sick days. There might be vacation days. Goodness, God forbid our admin staff should ever go on a holiday. And so with that given risk comes that always lands on the practice owner. So what I believe in is a teams-based approach. So it's where you separate out the tasks, you put people in the seats that do those tasks really, really well, and then you mitigate your risk that way. So if you've got one person on payments and one person on communications, you're far less likely to experience risk when one of those people calls in sick. It's very unlikely that both those people will be sick at the same time. So I love the idea of separating things into skill set, where we have the best people doing the best jobs, but also delineating between tasks so that we aren't totally at the whim of one person who might just get under the weather.
Yeah. This is what I learned over the years is that like the days of hiring someone, them staying for the next like 10, 20 years, I don't think it exists anymore, right?
I don't think it does. I think people like to switch jobs every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
If we're lucky.
Especially if it's an entry-level job, right? And let's be honest, like the front desk is an entry-level job. And so it must be, so I think you could hold on to like, yes, we might find that one unicorn front desk that'll stay with me for the next 10 or 15 years. Or you accept that, hey, it is a rotating chair.
That's right.
It is rotates every 2 years. So either you got an amazing recruitment, onboarding training system, or you consider outsourcing some, like you said, some of these tasks, right? Where it is hard to replace that or train someone quickly, like especially with billing and payment, right? Would you agree, Julie?
I completely agree with that, Rick, that we can't trust that they're going to stay here long term, but we also can't trust that they're going to stay week to week because people want flexible roles.
Yeah.
And so some people only want 10 hours a week with us. So if we can, if you need someone at your front desk, it's true.
Yeah.
But if we talk to some clinic owners who have these really tricky front desk roles where they need somebody to buzz the patients in. Let's say they're in maybe a busier part of downtown and they have a lock on their front door. And so the front desk has to be there physically to let everybody in. The opportunity is that they can hire a more junior person to sit at the front desk and be what I call like the Walmart greeter. If they have to just buzz somebody in, have a nice conversation, offer them a cup of tea when they walk in the clinic, everything else can be outsourced so that we know that it's always being done regularly, being done properly by specialists. So there's an opportunity to offer people flexible roles where maybe it's just 10 hours a week here, 10 hours a week there, and then to outsource the stuff you need consistently done that really requires that expert level care.
If you were to like deconstruct the role of a front desk, what are all the big you could say the top things that a front desk what are the top front desk activities, right?
So phone for sure.
Okay.
I would say phone answering is separate from email because email can be done.
Is that inbound phones or outbound phones or both? Anything relating to the phones?
Incoming phone calls,
okay.
Like inbound phone calls
okay.
need to be considered one department because they happen in real time. You have to have somebody at the ready. Whereas email can be checked 3 times a day.
Okay.
We know that that can be done asynchronously.
So do you put communication in a bucket or is it the phones?
I would put it separately. I would put communication as email.
Okay.
And communicating by email text is one. And then another one is incoming phone calls would be a second one.
Okay.
And then payments. Payments is a whole separate bucket.
So that's billing, AR, and then it's also like doing the phone calls to chase people for money and okay, collections.
And billing, the people that love billing are often different personalities than the people that love communications, right? They love numbers, and it just is their delight of their day to see the debits and credits matching. Yeah. So if we can get those people doing our accounts receivable, we're winning.
Yeah.
Versus the people that really write the flowery emails and want to connect and you get that dopamine hit from, those are your communications people. So these are just separate skill sets. And as long as we recognize that, we can put these people in different seats.
Yeah.
And then there's also the one-time projects. So I often see clinic owners hiring full-time front desk staff when they have a number of projects that they need done. They need their website built. They need their Jane account set up. If they're new to a certain EMR, they set their new account up. Or maybe they have their policy and procedures manual. They want to start one and draft that. I want to let clinic owners know that they don't have to outsource to a full-time front desk staff to get these projects done. They can hire contractors, and they can pay for certain projects to get completed.
So do you call that that department is projects, or that you call that admin or like other?
I call it one-time projects.
Okay.
Because they actually don't need to all get completed at the exact same time.
Yeah.
You don't need to hire full-time. So what I see clinic owners doing, one mistake they do is they need these projects done. So they hire a full-time front desk staff. They complete the projects. And now they're stuck with a full-time employee and they don't have the business for it. So my suggestion is to write down all of the different things you need done. Think of the timeline and consider outsourcing for just those projects.
Yeah. Okay. What about scheduling and some of the in-person patient experience stuff? Is that?
Also, scheduling, I would say so much of that can still be done virtually.
Okay.
And that would be part of the communications role. So email, text, and booking and scheduling within the EMR. That's all part of creating patient delight. And we want to make sure that we're creating a great experience, connecting with the patients as they come in digitally. Now, if you need someone physically to greet your patients, like I said before, you have the opportunity to hire a more junior person if it's just that you need a body at the front desk.
Yeah. Are you seeing a trend of clinics, especially the solopreneur practices? Like, let's just focus on that. Like, there's a rise of solopreneurs. Everyone, like they don't want to work for someone. They just want to have 1 or 2% practice. Like, low, not lots of people, just me and a couple. I want a low staff. Are you seeing a rise in that type of practice owners?
Absolutely. And I think it's so wonderful that they have an opportunity to, pay this fraction of a cost for their admin team when what used to be available to us, to you and I when we first started out in practice, was you had to hire a full-time front desk staff who actually sat there physically with you, and you were hoping that they would stay long-term. And now there's this opportunity to pay fractionally, and you can pay a quarter to a third of what you would typically spend to hire, train, and manage your conventional team.
I'm definitely seeing that a lot in our community. A lot of the, I would say a lot of the solo, like the startups, the ones are 1 or 2 people are building $200,000 or $300,000. Like the numbers don't make sense for them to actually hire a full-time staff, right?
Exactly.
But they get so busy where like they can't be answering the phone calls in between patient care, right?
Yes.
Or doing the voicemail, and they're just losing all this opportunity. So then it makes sense to actually go hire like a virtual assistant or like remote front desk staff, right?
It does. And I think people are feeling empowered now. They've heard the message from you and your team. They've heard like Dan Martell from Buy Back Your Time. People are seeing like, oh, it makes sense to actually have an assistant instead of doing all the assistant work myself. They see that they can generate more revenue that way. We're also seeing a huge resurgence of group practices actually in the mental health field. So we've got lots of group practice owners that come to us in the very beginning where they're about to launch to have a number of different practitioners work with them.
Okay.
So there's sort of...
What do you mean by that? What's a group practice?
A group practice for a mental health practitioner is where they have a whole bunch of practitioners working together out of the same EMR account.
Okay.
So it's what we might call a clinic. They call a group practice in the mental health field because a lot of them are working virtually.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the brick and mortar clinics, we're not seeing those soar like they used to. I'm seeing a lot of folks starting small solo practices, and then I see the mental health crew starting a lot of virtual.
But the mental health practices are already like a remote first based business, right? Like they started off with not brick and mortar, right? And it was kind of built and seeing it scale through COVID, right? And so it just did more of that, right?
They've leveraged it and they've really crushed it. They often have, what we see at Ginger Desk anyway, is they often do have a brick and mortar option for patients, but then they bring on a lot more therapists who can serve their community remotely.
Yeah.
So they grow quickly that way.
Yeah, I know a Cairo in Toronto, and she's doing some big numbers, and I would say 30-40% of her numbers are actually mental health, and it's all run remote the way you're saying. And she's your typical Cairo physio massage practice, but a third of her business is all mental health professionals, and they don't go to their clinic, right? And she's leveraged the fact that, I don't need more space to actually grow my business. And so that's one thing that I'm seeing more and more brick and mortar clinics are doing, is actually building this part of the business like onto the brick and mortar, So.
That's right. We've seen clinics who actually give up their front desk altogether and they make it a revenue generating space. Like they add IV chairs or they're adding treatment tables to that area, or they're running like group programs in that area where they're actually giving up the front desk because it sucks so much square footage from the clinic itself.
Yeah.
So there's huge opportunity when you go virtual.
Let me ask you, if you were to start a practice from scratch, like brick and mortar, okay? And how would you set up the front desk operations for a solopreneur? And then maybe we'll talk like what it would look like for like $1 million practice afterwards, right? So what would you do for a solopreneur practice,
Like physically, what would I like that to look like?
Yeah, what would the front desk operations be like? What would be, like how would you set it up, right? All those departments that you talked about.
It's so interesting because there's a chiropractor here in Vancouver who many, many years ago, about 10 years ago, she launched a clinic with multiple practitioners and no front desk space. So you walked right into this area with some chairs and a TV. And she was so ahead of her time. But that is truly what I would do now. 10 years later, knowing what I know about how much can be done virtually, I would say offer a small little tiny square footage for folks to just sit and wait, and then have some engaging content on a screen for them and some clear instructions that the therapist will be out when they're ready. And that's all you need.
So so this is no front desk. So how do they check in? Like what would all the different operational front desk checkpoints?
Well, they can very simply check in through a QR code, so that they're, let's say, depending on the EMR they're using.
Actually, let's go back to the very beginning. So I'm maybe put it from a patient perspective, right?
Okay.
So I call and I book, right? What happens next until I actually see the solopreneur and make my payments, you know?
So you book in as a patient, and then your intake forms are sent automatically through you, depending on the type of consult you've just booked.
Okay.
You fill out your intake form online.
What if I don't fill it out?
Well, so if you don't fill it out, we can send reminders. Your admin desk will send you reminders to complete it. So you do need a certain support at the front.
So is this where your virtual assistant would, like, obviously, like if you're using Jane will do all the text, email, reminder. I'm just saying, if that doesn't work, then you would get your virtual assistant like to call them and
this is it.
Okay.
Yes. Like your VA has so much work to do between consults, right? They're the ones monitoring all the admin of that first initial patient. So the patient doesn't fill out their intake form. The VA is doing what we call look-aheads, and they're checking out to see whether the intakes have been completed for the new patients next week. They'll go in, they'll ping the patient, remind them that they need to adhere to the policy, whatever that might be. Whether it's you have to complete it before you come or it's a nice to have, we'll follow suit. And then let's assume the patient does complete it, and then we'll notify the practitioner via a task in Jane or a task in their EMR. The intake form is complete, so the practitioner can then look at it. And then when they come to the clinic, they'll have directions sent to them via the EMR. That's part of booking that's part of the automated booking intake. And then they'll arrive at the clinic. Ideally, if this is a small practice, we don't need a front desk. Okay. We can do 99% of what the front desk does, we can do remotely.
And so do you collect the credit card information before like they arrive, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a big component of it. So then payments is taken care of, right? Even if they show or not show or whatever they bill, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So they'll enter their credit card online because we'll make that mandatory in order to book the consult.
Okay. Love it.
Yep. So then they arrive on time for their consult. They have a seat. They scan the QR code, so they are arrived. The practitioner can see from their treatment room that the patient has arrived.
Okay.
And then they can come out and greet them at the right time.
And then what happens afterwards now, like in terms of scheduling a plan of care and also billing, right? You know, what happens afterwards?
Exactly. So we can have a system with the practitioner whereby we have things really, really tight. So the practitioner will task us with any changes that are needed to the consult. Maybe they need a release of records to send out for labs. Maybe they have certain exercises they want us to send. They can send that all by task. They don't even need to send an email to the front desk. They can just say goodbye to the patient and say, our VA will be in touch with you shortly about next
Do
steps.
you use the word VA, or you just say like our team or front desk? Like what's the language that you guys use with like your clients?
I like VA.
Okay.
And that's because that's how we refer to our team members. Some of our clinic owners will say patient care coordinator because they have PCCs in the office. So it really depends on how they want us to fit in with the team.
If I never heard of VA, I was like, what's a VA?
What's a VA? And they might have to give a little bit of education.
VA is, for people who don't know, is virtual assistant, right? Is that right, Julie?
Virtual assistant. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Virtual medical office assistant, virtual assistant, yes.
Okay. So then they do the follow-up, right? You know, cool. Yeah.
Yep, and then they'll reach out to the patient, get them booked in, get the payment collected, and we're done. Just like the front desk would do. Now, the only things we can't do at the front desk are laundry and greeting the patients in person. Okay.
And the scheduling too, right?
We can do the scheduling. We do it remotely.
Oh. Or do you think it's better for the solopreneur to actually schedule while they're there? Because wasn't there way more compliance with, like, say, if I'm the physiotherapist, the patient's with me already. I get way more buy-in if, like, I was to schedule at least the next, like, 6 appointments with them on the calendar, right?
So, great question. We love block booking, and we also believe in a concierge experience.
Okay.
So, ideally, the VA is setting up those 3 to 6 consults at the first appointment.
Okay.
So, if the
end of the first appointment or before the first appointment?
After the first appointment.
Okay. Okay.
We don't, I mean, it is up to the practitioner what they prefer. I prefer to have a really lovely initial consult with the practitioner before we bombard the patient with multiple bookings.
Okay.
But it does work so beautifully if we know the windows of time that the patients are available, and then we can make some suggestions for the next 3 to 6 appointments.
Okay.
If the practitioner prefers to book on their own, wonderful, but that's what we're here for. We're here to take the stress off of practitioners so that they can just see the patients, work their magic, and say goodbye.
Yeah, amazing. It sounds like you really built it so that the practitioner, like, it's at least, they don't have to do that much, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's the least friction for the practitioner.
Yeah. Wow. So I was speaking with, I did an interview with Katie White. She's out on the island. She's a big fan of Ginger Desk, by the way.
We love Katie.
Yeah. And she has a big team, you know, she has, she has over 10 plus massage therapists working on her clinic. And what you described is how her practice is set up, right?
Yes.
It's completely remote. All the check-ins that you just talking about down is done by, like, the virtual assistant. The credit card is all collected. I think some practitioners, like, book the schedule, but then the rest, like, use the concierge service that you just talked about. And it seems to be, like, getting them results, and it really helped them not only improve the patient experience, but also cut down on what their admin charges are. Because just like with where everything is going right now with running a healthcare business, like, it's just becoming more and more expensive to run the clinic, but also the wages and everything relating to, like, front desk staff is also going up. And if you can't make it efficient, you don't have the time to invest in the onboarding and training. Like, it's just hard to make those numbers work, right?
It's incredibly hard. Like, a living wage, depending on where you are in Canada, can be, I think it was in close to Banff, Alberta, a living wage was $35 an hour. I know that in Toronto and Vancouver, it's closer to like 22.
That's why you can move to Wisconsin, you know? Wisconsin's good.
Or Texas. I mean, there are different places you could live, but a living wage is quite expensive here.
Yeah.
And to your point about Katie's experience with Ginger Desk and with her own front desk staff, what happens is when you create systems and you're intentional with following those systems, it makes everything so much more efficient.
Yeah.
So when we have to create systems in order to work remotely with someone, and you don't have to be that intentional when you have an in-person front desk staff. You can sort of walk by, let them know, oh, here, by the way, the patient needs this and that. Make sure you do this. You walk away. Oh, shoot, I forgot. The patient needs this and this.
Yeah. We
have to be hyper organized to serve a practice remotely. So that's also why it tends to cost a lot more to outsource to a remote front desk, because you've got to be so careful with your systems and we've got to be so dialed. And so we tend to be a lot more organized, and patients have a better experience because of it.
Yeah, I think so. You know, and I think the gap you're filling is that, like, they're not just hiring like a virtual assistant in Asia, right? That haven't been vetted, haven't been trained. Like I think what Ginger Desk has, correct me if I'm wrong, is like they're fully trained. Like, they've been in this industry. Like, they understand the billing. They know everything. Everything is turnkey from day one, right?
Yeah, I like how you say it. Turnkey, exactly. So they have to, our medical office assistants have to have been in a brick and mortar practice for a minimum of 3 to 5 years. And then they have to go through our own Ginger Way training. We call it Ginger University, and it's a 140-hour training program, and it's mandatory before they're ever matched with a client.
Cool.
So yeah, we have really strict HIPAA and PIPEDA guidelines that they need to learn to follow. And it ensures that there's always good quality and that our team really knows and they're really experts in the EMRs we support.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. So that makes sense from a solopreneur practice, right? So if you're to start a $1 million clinic from scratch now, how would you set that up with all those different, like the front desk departments, right?
Well, I would say it depends what disciplines we're serving. If we're supporting naturopathic doctors, medical doctors, mental health practitioners.
How about like physio, chiro, and massage clinics, right?
So they might need what I call the Walmart greeter at their front desk. So then you have this opportunity to hire students, maybe even high school students.
Do you need full-time or part-time, or you just the main hours?
You might have the flexibility of hiring 3 part-time high school students.
Okay.
You might hire some parents who are happy to have some 10 to 2 hours. That's the beauty of having some really excellent outsourced people, is that you can be choosy with who you have at your front desk. So hiring people maybe without medical expertise becomes an option.
Okay.
So you might hire some parents, you might hire some students.
So their role will be like greeting. What else would they do? Laundry?
Clean the rooms between consults.
Okay.
And do some laundry.
The patient, that's it? Those 3 tasks?
That's it. And at a really busy clinic, if you're looking to have, a $1 to $5 million clinic, you've got people coming through the door really often, and they need that attention.
Yeah.
And so you don't want your front desk staff to be busy on the phone and busy managing direct billing at their computer.
Yeah.
So if we can outsource direct billing and the phone, then you can really leave that person freed up to offer that really excellent white glove service at the front desk.
Okay. Which is why most people usually stay, right? The Walmart greeter, right?
Because they're happy.
Yes.
That's what they want to do. And you get the people that love chatting the patients up.
Yeah.
We want to put them in those seats.
Okay. And then all the other tasks, like the ones you talked about, like the phones, the communications, the payments, right? And those one-time projects, that stuff you would outsource to a virtual assistant, right? Is that what you're saying?
And then, exactly. Okay. You can outsource everything else. And it really depends. If you do have a front desk staff that can handle some of those tasks, you can outsource the rest. But what it does is it mitigates your risk when that person either quits, goes on vacation, or is sick for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And training too. Like every front desk turnover, it's literally costing you 60 days of pay, right? Easily.
What do you say, Rick? Do you say that it's about half of the annual salary every time there's a turnover?
Well, I don't know what the revenue impact is, but if you account for the revenue impact, I think it's pretty big. But if you look at it from an expense side, easily, if you think about how crazy and intense the interview process is and how it usually doesn't work out, you got to put staff to onboard and train them. That's assuming you got the right training process and onboarding process. And then half of them work, half of them do not work. You do this cycle all over again. It's easily 2-3 months there of expenses. Forget the opportunity cost of you losing because they're not scheduling or you collecting money. I think that is another problem. But just from expense standpoint, you're puking this money regardless, right?
Yeah, that's a great word. Exactly.
Puking?
You're puking money. That's right. Well, and if you're a small clinic owner, it's all landing on you, right?
Yeah.
You're the one who has to now pause patient treatment so that you can go train this new front desk staff. So the opportunity cost is it's monstrous.
And is there a if I'm $1 million practice owner, because I see a lot of the clinics we work with, they have 2, 3, or 6 or 7 front desks. It's a big shift for them to move to call it this virtual assistant model, right? Yes. Is there a cost saving around this, Julie, or is it
Absolutely.
Okay, what type of cost saving are you seeing before and after for these type of practices? Because let me put it in perspective. A typical practice, I would say, is probably spending, I'm just going to say 12% of their revenue, maybe on admin, right? Yes. And so if it's $1 million, 12%, what type of, how many percentage points do you think that you're saving to this different type of model?
We can save folks about 2/3. So it typically costs about 3 to 4% at Ginger Desk of total revenue. So
your practice is at 3-4% right now if you look at your own practice, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay. Because that's a reference point, right? Exactly. So if you're going from 10 or 12 to 3, that's 7 points, And so if a typical business owner is I'm not making that amount of money. My profits are only like 12% a year or 15% a year. Like this model, which does seem like a lot of work to transition to, but it adds an extra 5 points, right?
Well, and I wouldn't say it's difficult, because what we do is we ease folks into it.
Okay.
So we'll say, give us the low-hanging fruit. Like, what does your team absolutely hate doing right now, so that we can make it a win for everybody?
Okay.
Because we want to get the admin team on board. And look, they often hate faxes. I mean, I'm coming from a medical background here, where we've got lots of labs, lots of release of records, faxes, and they often hate direct billing.
Okay.
So if we can start there and just take the faxing and the direct billing off their plates, we'll quickly gain the practitioner's trust. We'll quickly gain the admin team's trust. And then say 4 to 8 weeks later, we can then take on other tasks. So we ease into it. We do it gently. Sometimes we have to come in gangbusters if an admin's team member quits.
Yeah.
But if it is done appropriately and intentionally, we can usually just ease in. So there is minimal disruption. And in fact, everybody feels like such a relief, because everything's being done so well.
If my office manager or my like number one front desk just quit on me, like how quickly can Ginger Desk like take over? Is it like within the week?
I wish I could say it was the week. It's 4 weeks.
4 weeks. Okay.
It does take us 4 weeks.
Okay.
And we try to expedite emergency situations. Like
is there some basic functions you could take over right away, so that like, because like if once again I'm thinking about practice owner 4 weeks, and I see this a lot, it's like 4 weeks is a long time to be down, right? You know, and so you end up hiring someone, and then you're like, oh, then I don't, and then you know, I don't exploit this other option, right? You know, so.
Well, it takes us 4 weeks because we do such a good job of onboarding. It's
Okay.
not that it takes us 4 weeks because we're just dilly-dallying, but we really just want to make sure that when we answer the phone, when we answer the email, we're doing it all appropriately.
Okay.
Because there's a lot to know. There are so many nuances in each practice. So we definitely take our time with that. And I would say we'll try to, like I said, we'll try to expedite it. It's much easier if people are already engaged with Ginger Desk. So if we're already in the background doing one small task.
Like billing and payments, right? So
exactly.
Okay.
Like if we're just doing payments in the background and a full-time front desk staff quits, boom, we're in there. We already know what.
My top biller just quit on me, right? And it takes you so many months to train someone to bill in Jane, for example, right?
Yes.
Is that function like that take 4 weeks, or that could happen like a lot quicker?
That still takes 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, unless somebody is already engaged with us and
Okay.
has us doing another task.
Yeah.
If they're a brand new client to us, it does take us 4 weeks to get onboarded. It can sometimes be 2 to 3, but we love to say 4 just so people don't get overexcited.
Yeah.
And we know that we've got a payments team, and they are specialist experts in all things payments.
Okay.
And so they are worth waiting for. I'll say that.
I love it. And so I know a lot of owners like to hire their own virtual assistant like overseas, you know. What would you say some of the biggest mistakes you've seen with an owner like hiring it and doing it themselves, right?
Hiring their own virtual assistant on their own.
Yeah.
I think
and training them and onboarding them and all that jazz, right? You know, so
I think it's the whole thing, right? People aren't ready for what that entails. It's no different than hiring an employee onshore. You're still going to be beholden to making sure there's enough work and deliverables for them for the week, and ensuring that you've given them all the resources they need to get successfully onboarded and trained. Because it is, like you said, it's a 2-month process. Like, it really is a lot to teach. And if you're busy seeing patients in the room, you really need to make sure that you've got an epic program that's maybe asynchronous for them to be training. Because it really does take a long time to get somebody on board. And I think that we assume, oh, well, they're offshore, they're going to be affordable. But really, you're still probably employing them full-time or part-time. And then if there's turnover, you're still responsible for them paying for the training time. So I think that people get overexcited about offshore and expecting to pay too little. I also think that we need to be realistic about what we're willing to pay for these people who are doing such great work for us. Yeah. And we probably need to be paying them a little bit better.
Yeah, I love that. One thing I would bring up is that like if you don't have a really good training process, right, and you're not good with managing people, especially remote,
Yes.
I don't think you should take this on. I think you should outsource it, right? You know,
Agreed.
because managing, it's hard not to manage like someone in front of you, but managing someone on a Zoom screen is a completely different game, especially in a different time zone, you know, and we do a bit of this stuff. Julie knows that. Like we do a bit of this stuff with Call Hero. And a lot of the people that I see that don't do well with virtual assistants is the fact that they don't have the processes to like train somebody, and they're not necessarily really good with managing people, right?
That's right.
And so like you're just making it worse. And it's, you know, even if you hire that person like locally in Canada and the US, you would still have the same problem.
It's the same thing.
It's the same problem.
And in fact, it might even be heightened because now you're right. They're not there to connect with in real time. They're virtual. So you've got to really have an intentional process for aligning with them weekly. We see a lot of folks that don't want to meet with our VAs weekly, and we have it mandatory in our services agreement that we have alignment calls every week.
Okay.
And our most successful practitioners are the ones that meet with our VAs weekly.
Okay.
And we take the management on. So our team is doing all the management, the CE credits with them.
Okay.
We handle everything in the background, but we do still require that connection or that relationship to be built.
But it's no different than you like meeting weekly with your office manager or your front desk saying, hey, like here is, like, let's look at our numbers from last week. This is what we said we would do last week. Are we doing it? Hey, are you stuck? Are you overwhelmed? It's like these are normal conversations you should have when you manage your team, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. And those are the hard conversations that a lot of people don't want to have too.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're saying is that this is part of like your workflow, right? Like it's
Exactly.
in essence, like they are an extension, Ginger Desk is an extension of them, and they're checking, you're meeting them each week to like actually review what's happening, right?
Yeah, we want to hear what's going on in the practice. Tell us about your practice growth goals, any new clinicians that came on board, any obstacles, anything that could be done differently. But the management of that person is done by Ginger Desk, and that's the benefit, right? If they're struggling for personal reasons or there's any other issues with their skill set, that's on us to take care of. And that's the hard part about managing people, as you and I both know, right? It's those hard conversations. And so you're right, to your point. If you're not great at it, outsource it.
Okay.
Because that is a whole other part-time job, managing a human.
Yeah. Maybe you could help us summarize this whole thing. What front desk activities should be outsourced, and which ones should be done like in-house, Julie?
I mean, you're asking me. I think everything should be outsourced. So I think email communications, phone communications, scheduling, rebooking patients, all your payments, AR, and billing, and any small one-time projects like building out a standard operating procedures manual, starting a new EMR, or setting up new, say, chart notes in your EMR, all should be done by remote.
Okay, and the in-person or in-house ones, it sounds like it should be the Walmart greeter, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. The laundry, right? Yep. The patient experience, all the conversations that happens, right? You know, the touchy-feely stuff, right?
Exactly. Greeting the patients, doing laundry, cleaning the room between consults,
Yeah.
stocking shelves.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thanks for that. And Julie, how do people find out more about Ginger Desk, and if they were interested, what does that look like, and where do they go?
Thank you, Rick. Gingerdesk.com, and you can book a discovery call with our accounts team and learn more. So we'll go through what your current front desk situation looks like. We'll talk about the gaps, and we'll point out some opportunities where you could leverage an outsourced team.
Okay, I love it. Julie, thanks for coming on the show, and I really enjoyed this conversation. You gave me a whole new perspective of like how to run your practice without a front desk, which I believe with like everything that's going on the macro economy wise, like I think there needs to be a shift within the traditional role of a front desk, right? It's just unsustainable,
Absolutely.
right? You know, so at all levels. So
Awesome.
okay.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks so much. This was great.
Awesome.